Hello and welcome to the Saturday show, Seawolves. And boy, do we have some good news today. Something especially good that I want to start the show with today. Look at what arrived yesterday. Finally, I now have my official Seawolf mug myself. So happy with it. Unboxed it out of the box yesterday and I was like, wow, it looks amazing. And I thought I wait here for the start of the show to actually test it out and see how it works. So are you ready? I already, just for the fun, I already put some coffee in here, but let me add some more here just to test the sound. It sounds good, sounds amazing, sounds exactly how it should. But does it taste any different? Does it do anything different? Let's see here. All you other Seawolf muggers with me there at home, let's do this together now. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Ooh, that takes me back. That is nice. That is very, very nice looking, right? I really like it, really nice. The second good news piece for today is that Gitana 17, so the Jules Verne Trophy we're talking about right now, are leaving in 45 minutes as I'm taping this. So right now it's 3:15 here in Amsterdam and they're set European time to leave at 4. So by the time that we are seeing this, if you go to the tracker, which I put the link to the tracker both on the top of the comments and in the description of the video, so you can find it in two places. I'll also put it in the chat right now, right next to the video, so you're all absolutely 100% sure to find it. And we are probably going to see right now, as we're watching this, that Gitana 17 has started and is on its way to try once again to break the record, as you can see behind me, of 40 days, 23 hours, 30 minutes and 30 seconds. That is the time that this incredible trimaran, foiling trimaran, the Edmond the Rotchild, better known as Gitana 17, has to beat. And yeah, we're going to follow them closely, so there's nothing to follow right now. But I'm going to do my very best to get some cool onboard video and get us all updated throughout the race to see if they are going to make it this time. And yeah, for us all to be warned, we saw Sodibu Ultim 3 try and unfortunately fail. They stayed ahead of the record for a good time, but in the Southern Ocean ultimately failed, but it was only after they'd already fallen behind the record that they had the rudder problem, so we'll never know if they'd be able to catch up. But the real trouble with this record is that IDEX Sport, which is the original record holder, which is the second boat that you see in the tracker here. So when you look at the tracker, for those of you who are new to the Jules Verne, I did a Jules Verne special kind of explaining the whole thing. There's a link to that video also in the description and on top of the comment, and I'll post it also here in the chat next to you if you're curious about that. But you see two boats, so you see the yellow boat, which is the Edmond the Rotchild, but you also see the smaller red boat, which is IDEX Sport. And so that's not a real boat, that is the Phantom, let's say. That's where IDEX Sport was at their time in the record. And the thing to really remember about this particular attempt is that IDEX Sport's way down to the Southern Ocean, so from the island of Coussant, where the boats are right now, all the way to the Southern Ocean, was relatively slow. So it was still pretty fast. I mean, these boats are going on average 30 to 35 knots on average, with steps up to over 40 knots on a regular basis. So these are, you know, quite a step faster than the IMOCAs that we're following in the Vendée Globe. But the beginning of the race for IDEC Sport, even though they are the current record holder with, you know, a 40 days around the world record, their start wasn't super fast. But the Southern Ocean part of that particular record attempt was almost completely flawless, right? And so the real trick is to get in front of the record in the beginning part, because that's where there's a lot of leeway, right? So we saw that also with Ultim 3. In the start of the race, they got ahead of IDEC Sport quite quickly, and then extended their lead quite a bit. But that is kind of, well, I wouldn't say the easy part, because it is a very, very fast record. But the new boats are, in theory, faster. So they have a little bit faster speed than the IDEC Sports that they can reach. They have a higher top speed, they're foiling boats, etc., which IDEC was not. So they are in theory faster. And so it's not very surprising that Solibu Ultim 3 was faster in the first bit, because IDEC wasn't super fast in that bit anyway, and wasn't a foiling catamaran. But now, once they get to the Southern Ocean, if they're ahead of the old record, there's almost no room at all to make any mistakes, as we saw with Solibu 3. So they had a good lead, something like 400 miles or something at max, which is not a lot. You know, if we look at the distances in the Vendée Globe, that's also, you know, around this type of distances, and we don't see a whole lot of you know, advantages for the number 1 and 2 of, you know, 200, 300 miles like that. I mean, Yannick Bestaven right now is again about 300 miles ahead of the number 2. Not huge distances. And so with this speed, with this big boat, it's kind of the same thing. And so it'll be very interesting to see how Gitana 17, the Edmond the Rotchild, is going to tackle this. But yeah, what we really have to see for them to actually break the record is that they're going to be in the lead right from the beginning, because most of the lead that they can build up, they will have to gain it in the first part of the race. So from Coussant, where they start, to kind of the Cape of Good Hope, let's say, that's the space where there is a lot of room for improvement still in this record. And with a lot of room, I mean 500 miles or so. If they really go up all through it really in an optimal way, they'll be somewhere like a 500 miles ahead of the previous record, which is a lot, right? That's a significant distance. But after that, during the entire rounding of the Antarctic, IDEC Sport basically doesn't really go under 35 knots of speed, right? So if at any time during their rounding of Antarctics, the Edmond the Rotchild goes significantly under 35 knots, so if they're going 30 knots for a day, they're losing a lot of miles that day, right? And there is no way to really win many miles there in the Southern Ocean unless they're doing over 35 knots. So if they're doing 40, 42 knots or whatever, they are gaining some space on IDEC Sport. But we all see how the race is in the Southern Ocean, with the waves, with all the circumstances there, watching out for, you know, UFOs to hit and all that stuff. Very, very difficult to sustain those super high speeds there. So the best that they can really hope for is get ahead of the record on their way to the Southern Ocean, and once they're in the Southern Ocean, to more or less match IDEC Sport's amazing speed. Maybe go a little bit faster here and there, but for the most part, if they can match that and not lose a lot of their headway that they will hopefully pick up on their way down, then once they get out of the Southern Ocean, there is some space, because the race up again wasn't quite perfect. You have the Doldrums, the IDEC Sport went through all of it pretty efficiently, but that part is not undoable, right? But the Southern Ocean part, to do that so smoothly and basically not go under 35 knots average more or less all the time, that's very hard. You need a lot of luck for that, right? And we saw with the previous record, Solibu was well ahead. Then they had like a day and a half of more or less bad luck conditions where they just couldn't really find a route that kept them above that, you know, 30 to 35 knots or so averages. And immediately we saw IDEC Sport just ramp up from the back and overtake them, right? And so that's what we're going to be, you know, if you follow this race with me, that's what I'm going to be looking for. That's what you're hopefully going to be looking for, and keep in the back of your mind that, yeah, they are going to probably run ahead of the record in the way up to the Southern Ocean. But it really doesn't matter much yet, because in the Southern Ocean there's just no space for error, and then on the way up, back from the Southern Ocean, there is some leeway. So if they're still 300 or 400 miles ahead, and they have 1, 2, maybe maximum 3 or 4 kind of off days where their averages are more like 20 knots or so over 24 hours, then they're gonna get through it. Then they might just get close to the record and actually break it. But only then can they screw up even a little bit. If they don't get ahead of the record in the first part, on the way to the Southern Ocean, it's more or less already over. So if they don't get a significant lead there, it's already done, right? If they have a good lead, but they have a really bad Southern Ocean part, it's more or less already done also. It's only if those two parts go more or less completely smooth from the start, and that's a lot to ask, right? That means that from the 20,000 miles or so that this race is, they need to complete more than half of it really in almost perfect fashion, losing almost nothing of their average top speeds, to gain even a fraction of space to have a little bit of bad luck or make a few iffy decisions, and then the record will still be very, very close to them. So that's how tight this record is, and that's kind of the run of the record throughout the race, which is kind of nice, I think, to know as we follow this. So I put the links to the tracker everywhere, and I really hope that they actually do start today, and then tomorrow we'll have our first real Jules Verne update again at the head of the show, how the record is going. And of course, you know, I wish all the luck to Team Gitana, if any of you are watching. Hope that you make it. We're going to be following you very closely, and I'm personally very much looking forward to see some amazing images of you know, what Gitana 17 really can do. Then time for the Vendée Globe, and actually the situation is not so different from yesterday, so the field looks pretty much the same. We do see that both number 2 and 3, Charlie and Thomas, have now chosen their path a little bit more to the north, so that's nice to see. And they have gained some miles on Yannick. So yesterday he was, I think, 340 miles ahead of Charlie. Now Thomas and Charlie exchanged places, so Charlie actually in the lead now in number 2 instead of Thomas. But Yannick has fallen back a little bit, so he's at 300 nautical miles ahead right now. So he lost about 20 miles, and yeah, it's obvious to see that you know, he went quite close to the coast, no real way through here. So that's that kind of line of high pressures that I talked about yesterday, which is clearly forming up here. And yeah, Yannick is, well, he's not really stuck. He's doing 10.5 knots average basically both in a 4 hour, so he's just doing 10 knots basically in a good direction, so that's good. But really all the other boats are just in more wind, and so we see Thomas doing 15 knots, we see Charlie doing actually 18 knots right now with a 16.9, so almost 17 knot 24-hour average, and Thomas is only 1 knot behind that with 15.7. So they're quickly gaining on the leader right now, which I guess super good for them. And what is also kind of interesting is that we see that all of the other hunters have now, after, you know, tacking a bit, they've all tacked again, and they are at a more favorable angle now. And if we actually look at the prediction, we see that for the hunters, the window to kind of move through, so again, don't necessarily follow these prediction lines, because I don't think they'll follow that. But if you look at this kind of wind field moving, I think that the course that they're on right now, so the course direction that they're on right now, is actually quite favorable. That's a course that almost takes you home, right? And if they actually follow that quite straightly, so in more or less a straight line, they actually will have wind for at least the next 24 hours or so. So a little bit more actually to the east than is suggested here. They'll have actually good wind on an optimal angle, I think, to move through quite unimpeded, while Yannick is actually, you know, kind of battling this high pressures all the time. And so the fact that we see the whole group kind of get a lot closer to Yannick here That I think is going to happen over the next days, and then we see right as Yannick passes through there, so that his line is relatively realistic because it's relatively straight. We see that he is likely going to get stuck in that big zone there. And yeah, so then there is a good chance for the whole group to get mightily close together again. So that's quite interesting. Then if we look a little bit more down, we see the epic battle going on between Armel Tripon and Claresse Kramer, having a lot of fun there, and they have gotten really close to each other. And now actually for the first time with the wind that we're having right now, we see that Armel outpacing her right now again for quite a bit. And it seems with the wind suggestion as it is now, and also if we run the prediction, that there is actually a good chance now in the next 24 hours or so for Armel, because I think this is quite accurate, you know, with their VMGs and their polars inserted, that that Armel might actually this time pass Claresse in the next 24 hours or so, and so that will be a real major shift in their kind of duel. Now that's not saying that that Claresse will be getting over Trammell again right back a little later in the race, but for now the path seems favorable for the first time really since they were kind of getting quite close to each other way back before Cape Horn. But now again a chance for Tripon to gain a place. So that'll be interesting to see if that actually happens and he actually goes from 13th to 12th in the next 24 hours. But personally I think the chance is rather high. I mean, Claresse is doing excellent, very fast so far, but with Armel outpacing everybody, including Claresse, all the time, whenever there's more or less a steady wind, it's still that mystery of his boat just maybe being a little bit faster in some situations. It seems like that's more or less a dead given. On the other hand, if that doesn't happen, and we see that Claresse actually speeds up, even though all the math right now, let's say, favors Armel, that'll also be interesting, because then apparently Claresse has found some way to push some extra speed out of her boat, putting her ahead of him, and she's managed all this time. So maybe she'll stay ahead, but it just seems like a big opportunity for her. So we'll see what happens. Then Roman Atanasio doing well, sailing more or less on his own, so going past the Falklands, not too much to say about that. And then we have our really, our super group with Pip Hare and Sherelle and Alan and Arnaud here, the four of them finally getting really close to the Cape now, and we can see the weather. So unlike what happened before, they have some real weather chaos really as they pass the Cape. Sherelle already in a lot of wind, doing 18.7 knots right now, and Pip doing 13, so Jeremy is coming up very fast behind her now. Same for the other two gents, they're both doing similar speeds, so 16 and 17 knots right here now, respectively. But they are going to be seeing some very interesting weather, so a big drop in wind at first, more or less steady wind as you can see as they move through. And then as they move the Cape, suddenly on the other side of the Cape, so not quite what you expected. Usually you go into the Cape area, lots of wind, crazy weather. Then as soon as you round the Cape, it's kind of starts to get a lot more nicer. But they are going to get the exact opposite, where as they round the Cape, it's going to be relatively 25 knots steady, Cape Horn, waves, etc., but not crazy extreme. But then as they pass the Cape, it's going to be exactly the other way around. So their first experience of actually having rounded the Cape, and I don't mind what Sherelle's doing, he's going on another round around the globe in this particular prediction, which of course is a bit crazy. But you will, as you can see, as they round the Cape, the weather actually will get a lot worse for them before eventually on Tuesday it'll get better also. So that will be kind of interesting to see how that goes for them. Then let's go back to the situation right now. And behind there we see, well, what I kind of discussed yesterday. So we see a bit stronger weather here, but right in the middle, so not really affecting most of the boats, and that's going to be moving with that field for a while and then go to the south. So Manuel Cosin will notice it a bit, but most of the worst part will already have sunk to the south by the time it gets to him, so no real biggie there. And the rest of them are all in relatively comfortable weather. Nobody's really inside the storms. They're moving, you know, with the storms, but the storms seem to be perfectly avoiding the rest of the racers, so they're gonna have just nice, fairly comfortable rides in the Southern Ocean right now. And yeah, that's the prediction for today. Then a small update on the whole childhood training day. So I got quite a few emails from different seawolves already about wanting to participate. That's absolutely excellent. If you want to participate, you know, please send an email to contact@seawolvestv.com so that we can keep you specifically appraised on the details as things like the dates and prices and all this type of things come out. But it's very nice to see that there's a lot of enthusiasm. Even many of you are saying, oh, if I can do that, I'd love to, you know, come over to Holland if it's possible. So like I said, it's all pending what will happen with the corona and everything, but you know, vaccinations here are starting to ramp up, providing that in America over there everything works out over the next few months. We'll have to see, but you know, let's just plan for the best and hope for the best, and if not, then we'll deal with that. But so I'm very happy to see that many of you are hoping to participate in that, and that I think will produce some really nice, cool sailing days together. So that's very nice. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the show today. So thank you all very much for watching. If you like the videos, please give them a thumbs up. It's very important for the almighty YouTube algorithms. And if you have like a question or a comment on something that I said, please post it also below. That really helps with the algorithms as well. And for all the other information and our amazing store where you can get these amazing superpower Seawolf mugs, you can find it all at seawolvestv.com. Thank you all again very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.